Okay, testing. 1, 2, 1, 2. Awesome. Everything seems to be working. I am feeling considerably better compared to yesterday. And now it's time, I suppose, to be back. Hello. Hi. I have no idea how today is going to go. It's Saturday. It's 8:15 in the morning. I'm very sleepy. Well, not really. I'm actually feeling pretty okay. But what I think is going to happen today is I would like to work more on this lovely lad. I thought I finished him and dry brushed him and all that stuff, and then I hit him with a dirty wash. And it turns out that dirty wash was exactly what was advertised on the tin. It was incredibly dirty and really, really bogged down the yellow that I had used on this model. So what's probably going to happen next is I'm going to do some light touch-up work because he clearly needs it. And then I think I'm going to spray down those for effect and dry brush the crap out of a lot of him. There are spots on here that I think could do with another wash that requires some shading, like these little areas, probably behind some of the panels, gaps in there. But that's going to be a much more focused wash than what I did initially, which was just slather it all in the homemade wash that I have and hope that it turned out okay. It did not. So I'm going to go ahead and start working on him. And I don't know, I might be here for an hour, I might be here for 15 minutes. That'll all depend on where the day takes me. Right now, I'm going to enjoy it as much as I can. So let's see, what do I need? Let's take that brush out, and the good brush, and I think I'll take, I need a dry brush, and I need the trash brush. Okay. That should be good enough to get me where I'm going. Now, the last thing I need is some black paint. And typically when I do stuff like I'm about to do, I use a really cheap black paint because I don't feel like wasting good stuff. So I'm going to use a little bit of Apple Barrel Black, and I'm going to use that to touch up some of the little fiddly bits, like how that's pretty sloppy right there, that's kind of sloppy, I could do better in there. Just the little bits that need a little bit more TLC than what I've given them, because yesterday as I was trying to finish this up, I was using this thing, and this brush is nowhere near precise enough to do some of the jobs that I wanted to do today. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then mayhaps hit it with some Agrax Earthshade, and we'll see how it looks after that. So let's go ahead and do some touch-up where I very clearly could not reach it with what is essentially a glorified dry brush. Because there are definitely spots that need some fixing. I will say, I think one of the most impressive things about this 3D printer stuff is, especially with the newer one, how just in general good these prints look. Now there are clearly flaws, which you can see in the print. Like, you know, down here where it looks like there was some kind of rippling due to it not coming off the build plate appropriately. But by and large, you can't tell. And unless you have them right next to each other, or unless you're intimately familiar with the look of the official plastic. And I'll be honest, I'll take that, you know, passing resemblance and minor discrepancy over forking over. I think it would have ended up being $120 to buy this whole kit via Games Workshop's official channels. And I mean, you could argue, yeah, but you could also get it used. You can buy secondhand. And yes, that is true. But I have no intentions of playing this in an official Games Workshop sanctioned tournament. I play this game for fun with my friends. So spending even half that amount on a mini seems a bit ridiculous to me. Now, if I were to actually go ahead and play this game in like a Games Workshop sanctioned tournament, then yeah, I would never ever think of bringing this in and saying, yep, it's real. I promise you, I bought this legitimately. It is Games Workshop plastic, and you should let me play. That's not the idea here. I'm not trying to bamboozle anyone into thinking that this is the real thing. This is purely a proxy for me to play with while me and my friends try and have a good time. And I will be incredibly upfront about that to anyone who asks. So, that being said, just going to go ahead and continue cleaning him up a bit. I heard that I have a new message in Discord. Ah, it's people just talking about one of my paint jobs. Go me. Hooray. Happiness. I posted some pictures of my my Praetor, my Terminator Praetor, that I finished painting not that long ago, and it's doing its rounds and getting some praise. My hope is that it will lead to some more commission work, because I like money almost as much as I like painting. And so if I can get paid, if I can have currency exchanged for my goods and services, then I will gladly jump on that. Which is what I am trying to do right now. And I guess the other good news about this is that in spots where clearly the yellow airbrush paint went way back over it, I can just hit it again, and it will go back to being this lovely dark black, and cover up whatever overspray I got with my yellows. I will say, I do enjoy what I'm learning about with color theory and how colors work against each other. Because I'm not very good with art in general, and color theory messes with me. Not as bad as music does. I am absolutely abysmal at music and trying to understand it. But knowing that how complementary colors work in a way, because I used the exact same Averland Sunset to spray it yesterday as I did when I did my first base coat, but because there was a layer of grungy black all over it, the Averland Sunset was coming out as almost a sickly green. And that's pretty disheartening if you don't know what you're doing, but it was just because of the transparency of the Averland Sunset letting through the black and the mild burnt umber flavors that were in my dip wash. So a couple more layers of the Averland Sunset allowed it to shine through, and eventually I was able to get it up to some resemblance of what it looked like. And honestly, I kind of dig how it looks now, where there are inconsistent layers of wear and tear on the Mini itself. So there are spots where the paint job is obviously very strong, and there are spots where the paint job clearly looks like it's had some or seen some action. You know what I mean? I didn't want this guy to look like he had rolled around in a pool of oil all day, but I also didn't want him to look like he was fresh off the assembly line and they had just stuck a body inside. So I'm definitely digging the now inconsistent weathering that he has. It feels a bit more believable to me. There we go. What else needs it? I suppose. Now, the thing for me that I'm kind of tickled by, and it's part of that learning process, is just how little of his dry brush is showing through. And all that tells me is that I just need to redo the dry brush, which is fine. Thankfully, I have good paint, so the dry brush doesn't really get lost or doesn't really use a whole lot of resources. So even though I've got to redo it, I'm not out a whole lot of acrylic paint. At some point, I'll gather up the courage to do, enamel washes and oil washes, but I'll do that later. Once I kind of feel the wild hair to do so, that's when it'll happen, which is kind of how I operate anyway. And of course, it's going to make my paint job look a million times better, but that's for another day. I don't feel like doing it now. I don't feel like learning that now, and honestly, I don't have the money to buy that stuff. Any money that I get could be better used elsewhere. So what else needs to be painted on him to bring him back to much more? striking colorway. Probably can hit these because these were originally black panels that got oversprayed. And you can see how they're almost green because of having the yellow on top of the black. I think that's about it. Maybe a little bit of this stuff down here, since it's going to get dry brushed all over again with metallics anyway. No use in keeping that awkward green underneath. Let's see. There we go. Maybe a little bit down there. There we go. And so I will be honest with you, if you are deciding to get into miniature painting, while it is nice to have a specialized black specifically for your miniature painting, you know, like Army Painter Black or Adden Black or whatever you want to call it, Abaddon Black, you know, just one of those little paint pots. That's great if you want to, for like the high quality areas, right? If I'm doing actual mini painting, that's great. But when you're doing bulk stuff like this, just having like an apple barrel cheapy acrylic like a black or a white is more than enough. I wouldn't really suggest you use it for more detail work because it tends to be pigmented very thin, and so it doesn't always show up well. But for smaller or for larger projects where you really don't want, or where you're going to need a lot of it, this stuff is perfect. That off there, make it look more like an oil stain. Perfect. And now, he's not perfect. He's not perfect, but he looks a whole lot better than he did after that first pass with the dip wash. Good afternoon, Red. How's it going? I forgot I had this guy done. Like, I had hit him with a dip wash, and I had him drying and waiting. But I realized yesterday as I was looking at him that he was way too green, or way too brown, and way too messy because of the type of dip wash I made, which isn't a great one. So I decided to go back and respray him. Awesome, congrats. So I'm assuming that's what you're working on right now. You're gonna have a really cool Space Bears army once that's all assembled and put together. Okay. But yeah, I did not like his color, so I airbrushed him, and then he ended up being this really weird sickly green, so I continued with the airbrushing, and unfortunately had a lot of overspray due to it, so now I'm going back and repainting a lot of the black spots on him to make those stand out, and then I'm going to give him a really hefty dry brush all over, because he's going to need it with the metallics. Man, I cannot sing the praise of 3D printing enough, because this model cost me, I don't know, about $6 to make, which feels a whole lot better to say than I spent $120 on, you know, the bits and bobs to make this model. Because Games Workshop prices for me. Wife's doing the resin bases as she speak. She says hi. Hello, how's it going? I forgot that you did the resin basis for Red. That's really cool. I'm trying to get my wife into this stuff too. She's not super fond of Warhammer, but she does enjoy the mini painting process. She's big into D&D and the like. So I'm basically feeding that part of the hobby by printing out characters she's made and designing or helping her paint that stuff. No, she doesn't need my help. She's a better painter than I am by leagues. My wife was a professional artist, is a professional artist. I think I've talked about it before. And she went to art school. And so while a lot of her character art is very much self-taught, she went for graphic design, so she has a really in-depth understanding of like color theory and of you know, proper placement of things and whatnot. So I just give her stuff, and she has the knowledge and experience, just be like, oh, this goes like that, this goes like that. One moment, please. I'm going to hit him with a hair dryer to try and encourage some of this cheap acrylic to dry a little quicker. Come on, you can do it. There we go. I printed my wife an Alucard statue, a non-licensed Alucard statue. I can't even remember what they called him, but he very cool looking model. He kind of looks like Sephiroth mixed with Alucard, and it's a really pretty model, and I think it's great. I printed it for her at 2 sizes, one of which is like the display size where you get them a whole lot bigger, and you know, you can put it up on a shelf or something. And the other one is closer to like D&D size, and she's painting the bigger one right now. And you know, I've got this special setup down here where I've got the lighting, I've got the studio, I've got all the good stuff. She just kind of sat at a couch and, using the light that was coming through the window, managed to detail paint and highlight his abdominal muscles to a degree that I could only wish to achieve. So her casual, yeah, there was light, so I did this, is leagues better than the stuff I do down here. And to make it even funnier to me, is she used a number 3 brush for all the precision work she did, whereas I've got, you know, the number 1 and the number 0 and all this fancy-pantsy equipment that I have. And it's like, well, I acknowledge who is the alpha in this case. I posted it actually on my Instagram, a picture of it, and she actually went back and improved it more because she realized there were little tweaks she could make, and so the highlights are even more distinct and even more noticeable. And I just think it's really neat that A, she enjoyed it as much as she did, and B, that she's so damn good at it. What needs to be hit? Because there's a lot on this guy that I covered with this repaint. No, she doesn't. She's interested in doing stuff like that. Like, she wants to start doing resin dice, but she watches a guy, and I don't remember his name for the life of me, but he casts resin dice. Hey, Tabiko, how's it going? Yes, this is the squarest of boys. By Games Work, I mean, I'm gonna brag about this because, you know, I'm a 3D printer. I have one, so I'm like a vegan, and I gotta tell everyone every chance I get. Flayed Father Minis, congrats. Or, I mean, not congrats, welcome. How's it going? Yes, he has awoken. But yeah, this is entirely 3D printed. Even the base is 3D printed. I don't think there's a single bit of Games Workshop plastic on here, but the Dreadnought model, the specific one for the Horus Heresy, is, I don't know, I think he's like $80 US. And then to buy the ranged kit so that you can have both both of these weapons, the ranged weapon and the siege weapon, Siege Claw, is like another $40 or $50. So altogether, if I were to have bought this retail from Games Workshop, it would have ended up costing upwards of $120, if not more. And given that I don't play in tournaments and I don't have any interest in doing so, that's a lot of money I don't want to spend. So instead, I bought a 3D printer, which you're probably well aware of, and I printed him out using an STL that I got for free, and the resin ended up costing me, to print him, the resin was about, I don't know, $6. So yeah, if I ever decide I want to go to a tournament, I'm going to buy the real thing, and I'm going to, you know, paint him up, make him look pretty, do all that fun stuff. But until then, I'm going to play with my friends with stuff that I 3D print for them and for myself. Because as a school teacher, I don't have that kind of money. Yeah, I know, right? I'm never going to try and pass him off as real. I feel like people who do that are being dishonest. Well, I mean, they are being dishonest, but I don't think that's fair. Since they do resin dice with movable dragon eye marble on the inside, and that looks awesome. Yes, that stuff is so cool. There was one recently. Yes, this is a Leviathan. This is going to be my Sir Chungus. I think I mentioned it before. He's completely 3D printed. He cost me almost nothing to make.
Now it's just a matter of getting him textured and prettified so that he looks like he belongs in my army. But yeah, the resin. I actually am trying to finagle an exchange with a local who wants me to paint a mini for her, and she casts resin dice, and I'm trying to get her to make a set for my wife, because my wife collects the dice. I have a pair that I already like a lot. I'm not compelled to get more, but I personally pass off my recaster stuff as original, but that's because I play in tournaments. I mean, that's fair if that's how you want to do things, because this shit's expensive and you shouldn't be priced out of it by wallet, then go for it. I personally wouldn't do that, but that's my thing. I don't expect everyone to live by my scruples, especially when it comes to a collector's hobby. You know what I mean? But yeah, I'm trying to finagle a set of cast dice using her art as inspiration for this mini, because it takes me next to no time. I should have an extra week of on-call this month, so I might be end up getting extra cash. Finally, time to get a 3D printer myself. Just know, Tabiko, that if you get a 3D printer, you also need to get, or you don't need to, but it's definitely recommended that you get a wash and cure machine. Because, resin is fairly toxic, and you can't just run it under a sink to clean it. You're going to have to use IPA, isopropyl alcohol, at like 90%, all that fun stuff. I guess the good news for you is that Anycubic has sales all the time, like all the time. And because of just technology getting better, I personally only recast for Forge World stuff because it's absurd. You're not wrong. Forge World stuff can eat it, because it's pretty much unanimously awful. I don't think I'd feel too bad about using recast Forge World stuff, given that the quality of the recast is probably going to be better than the quality of the original cast. Anycubic and Elegoo are the two big names. They're both based out of like Hong Kong, I believe. And between the two, I started with an Anycubic. I had an Anycubic Photon SE, which was like a 2K printer. And that's the one you guys saw me using when I first started streaming. And they're pretty good. The 2K is fine. But, yeah, that is fair. But I switched over to Elegoo because Elegoo has an 8K resolution 3D printer. And I was really looking to kind of future-proof and upgrade, you know what I mean? I bought the Mono SE because it was budget-friendly at the time. You've had no problems with the Taunar. That's good, because first of all, I'm jealous you've got a Taunar. But second of all, I've heard the few times I've seen people do the Manta, there have been ridiculous complaints about the warping and the quality and whatnot. So the fact that the Taunar seems to have escaped that issue is really freaking cool. The entire Necron line for Forge World is absolutely horrid. That doesn't surprise me, because they have a lot of very fiddly bits, right? So, being fine cast and being resin cast probably isn't the best for that. But yeah, I kind of feel bad because Forge World is, well, again, depends on the age. The Manta is mastered from a model. The Taunar is mastered from a 3D model. That's absolutely fair. And this is why I love having you on here, Pilkey, because you have a depth of knowledge that you can explain that I definitely don't have. And so you pretty much stop me from saying dumb shit. And I'm not too prideful to admit that I need some guidance or correction. Dad kept the power cable doing something. You can't chuck the 3D printer and washing station up there. With the weather that you guys have, I wouldn't anyway. It needs to be at about like 25 degrees Celsius is what's recommended. If it gets too cold, then it futzes with the curing times. But yeah, that is also a problem. The CAD design stuff isn't perfect, but it's way better than the other. I think it's 25 degrees. I don't know my Celsius very well. In American, in Fahrenheit, it's like 60 to 75, I think, is ideal.
25 degrees Celsius to Fahrenheit. A little lower than that. 20 to 25, I think, would be more precise.
But it does need to be fairly warm for the resin to activate and cure properly.
The only thing the Necrons that Forge World produce is the original of the Tomb Citadel.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Tabiko. But yeah, that's definitely a big thing, is that resin is very temperature sensitive. So if you go below like 60 degrees Fahrenheit, you're going to have a bad time. And what'll end up happening is you'll have parts that won't cure as well, and then they'll just pull off the supports or they'll stick to the build plate, and no one likes that. Okay,
This is looking infinitely better now that he's got a whole bunch of crap on him.
I think the only thing that I need to do now really to clean him up is I want to do some lighting, I want to do some OSL, but I think what I really want to do with him is I want to festoon him with, yeah, it probably is going to be a summer hobby. You keep it around 20 max in the winter.
Or just 20 in Fahrenheit. I'm curious now, because again, I'm not good at that. 68 degrees. Yeah, that's about what I keep it. So if you have it in the house
At 20 degrees Fahrenheit, the printer should work fine. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Unfortunately, we seem to not want to switch over to renewables and make that more efficient. You know what I mean?
I used to have a Tombstock, it was kind of a terrible model, but it wasn't due to the resin.
It was the sheer amount of spiky bits. Speaking of, I was helping my friend put together the Angron model and get him painted up and whatnot. And he's in a really rough, ugly stage right now, but the biggest thing I've realized about that model is there's nowhere to touch the damn thing where you don't end up stabbing yourself. So, I'm hoping actually that I can clean him up a bit, because he'd never used the airbrush before, and I was giving him an opportunity to do so. And, you know, first time using airbrush, you're not going to get perfect sprays every time. And he ended up going a little heavy-handed with it, and to be honest, I did too, because I was excited about Angron. So I kind of want to touch up the Angron model.
No one is going to question the 2 by 2 foot fortification. I'm starting to miss out on what chat's saying. I'm sorry. Nothing to be said.
Yeah, why would you have a 2 foot by 2 foot fortification on the Boozits? I mean, as fun as that is, that's got to be a big flavor win too.
I think the biggest thing I have in terms of footprint is the Hammerfall bunker that I need to repaint because I did a terrible job. I've actually never seen a Tomb Citadel. Necron Tomb Citadel. Oh my goodness! That is not what I was expecting. Oh, that is awesome. Is that the model? They're extremely rare. So yeah, and I just got into this hobby about maybe 2.5 years ago. I have not been into it very long. That's really freaking cool. One moment. No. Yes, this is what I want right here. Let's go ahead and show this off. And boom! For those who do not know, which is probably just me at this point, that is a Necron Tomb Citadel. It is a fortification. I did not know this thing existed, and now my life is better for knowing about its existence. That is so freaking cool. I have an extruder printer. An FDM printer, and I've been wanting to print. That's what it looks like. Some of the other pictures, actually, I can leave that up there, I think. Some of the other pictures they have on here have like the monolith over in the corner, and then they have a picture on Pinterest of the monolith on top. That is so freaking cool. I refuse to believe that that thing is $155. If that thing's $155, I'm going to eat the slippers right off of my feet right now, because given how Forge World prices things, that's got to be much, much more money. That is so neat. In the entire series, only 700 ever made. Well, there's gonna be 701 once I get my 3D printer going. Ha 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 ha. But yeah, I've got a Anycubic Viper that I can use for fortifications and the like. And I feel like something like the Necron Tomb Citadel is a perfect excuse to get that. Admittedly, one of the things I really want to use it for, or the main reason why I bought it, is my original thought was I can do vehicles with this thing. There's only like one STL. That's fair. I mean, I'm not going to try and get the exact copy. I'm probably going to try and just look up Necron STLs and seeing what crap I can come up with. But, the big reason why I got the FDM printer was to be able to do more terrain and more fortifications, because terrain's effing expensive, which I'm pretty sure you guys are very aware of. So, hopefully, I can get around to getting more fun stuff like that. It's modeled off of your Tomb Citadel? That's really freaking cool. So I'm gonna have to find the friend that did that for you and then offer to throw money at you. But no, like I said, I don't play Necrons. I know a single person who does, and she does so very informally and very infrequently. So the chances of me needing any kind of Necron terrain is pretty slim. What I'm most likely going to do is use it to print off some other terrain that I have locked and loaded. One thing that I am excited about is that I am a patron for One Page Rules, and each of their factions comes with themed everything. They have a themed measurement stick, they have themed dice, themed objective markers, and they have scatter terrain and small, medium, and large terrain. And I think they even have area terrain, which is absolutely bonkers to me. So what I'm probably going to do, just because I think it sells the best in terms of just visual flavor, is once they finish releasing all of their Plague Demon stuff, I'm going to go ahead and print that stuff out. I'm very passionate about Necron's proud to almost every model that's ever been produced in the line. As you should be, man. That's what this hobby's about, right? It's all about just finding the cool stuff and finding your niche. I mean, your name makes a whole lot more sense now, Flayed Father Minis, and I think it's really cool that you have that kind of thing. That's what I've always wanted to do. Is be the guy. You have over 20,000 points of Necrons. Good lord. I have like 6,000 points of printed Imperial Fists. Does that count? Similar with the Tau. Yeah, the Tau are fantastic. Like I said, I think that's something I love about this hobby, is just the collectability of it. And I take umbrage with people who are like, that's a huge waste of money. You could be spending that money on XYZ. It's like, there are people who have $1,000 golf clubs, man. Oh boy, show and tell time. Let's go. Let's go. Here's some of the Forge World tiles. Oh my goodness, these are so freaking cool. Oh my god. Oh my goodness. Oh boy. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. There's one of them. Is there another one? Did I heck up? Oh man, I need this stuff in my life. I already have that one out. Yeah, I already have that one out. I need this stuff in my life, man. And I've got a basement that is essentially going to become like the gaming room at my house. And so that just means that having these kind of things is incredibly viable. My wife and I have already decided that we're eventually going to finish out this basement, and we're going to put a big-ass gaming table in here and a bunch of shelves to hold all of our D&D stuff and Warhammer stuff. Yeah, I can get that. These don't look like these would be big-ticket seller, killer app items, just because of the sheer size of them. You know what I mean? It would be kind of insane to expect these to sell like hotcakes when they require quite a bit of commitment that I'm assuming an average player of Warhammer would be able to do. But the good news, and why am I getting rid of these? I need to keep these open. The good news, at least for me, is that these are all great inspiration for making my own terrain. Yeah, literally 2 foot by 2 foot tiles. Exactly. So I can understand why they didn't sell well. I'm sad that it happened, but I'm glad that they had the ambitions to do so because it can inspire newer generations, such as myself, to make really cool terrain pieces, which is now the plan. Unfortunately, I just got to stop being lazy about it. I've got a whole bunch of insulation foam that my dad, who's a remodeling contractor, was just like, hey, I have way too much insulation foam. You want some? And so, tens of thousands of dollars. If it's less than that, the only thing the only excuse you would have is if you were a retailer or had a business agreement with them. I would have to guess tens of thousands of dollars. And don't get me wrong, I would have to justify that it's worth every penny because it made you incredibly happy. But it just seems like that would be an incredible amount of money. Which is why I started 3D printing. $586. That's actually less than I expected. Oh, the actual Citadel, the floor. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of like your Citadel stuff. But yeah, that is quite a bit of money. But did you buy it after it went out of print? Like you realized you had a mighty need for one, so you more than you expected? Yeah, that's fair, I guess. Given that it looked like they were selling those blocks for $90 or 90 pounds, that is quite a bit. But I'm assuming you bought it after it became a collector's item. I paid $300 for an Orca not long after they went out of print. I don't remember what that is. Based on the name, I'm assuming it's a Tau piece. Yeah, my knowledge of Games Workshop stuff product is fairly limited to the last few years. You take the original price of $120, the price hike to the rarity. Yeah, exactly. I'm not surprised that you spent almost $600 on it. I'm honestly, yeah, look at that thing. Okay, so I know what that is. I just have never seen a model of it. Man, I freaking love the stuff that they make, man. I know that Games Workshop can do some things that their fan base are not too excited about. But I love the ambition of some of their models. Those are so impressive. That was a terrible model to put together. I'm not surprised. It looks like it could be a mess if it wasn't designed just perfectly. But yeah, today has been a good day. I've learned a lot of cool things. What has been your guys' favorite model to put together? Like, what is a model that stuck out in your mind as just one that, from the minute you open the sprue box, it's basically a box, and we know a good Forge World isn't producing straight lines. Yeah, exactly. But like, from the moment you cracked it open out of the package and looked at the sprues to the moment that you finished assembling it, like you had it all together and you were ready to spray prime it or whatever. Tomb Citadels are only sold around once every 3 to 5 years. I didn't know that they cycled them back in and out. But yeah, like, what was your guys' favorite model to put together? From the moment you opened it to the moment you finished putting it together. They don't? Okay, that's fair. Storm Surge? I really wanted a Storm Surge. The Storm Surge is one of the models that got me into Warhammer. It's just how rare it is to find them on the internet. Yeah, that's fair. I guess people realize they don't want them or need to pay bills, and so they slap them up on eBay or something. Or wherever you would have to find them as a private seller. I have a 3D printed Storm Surge that I'm not overly proud of because I got way too excited, and when I slapped it together, it ended up having some very awkward angles with its feet. And I gave it custom arms because, as much as I like the idea of a chicken with a cannon mounted on its shoulder, you guys can't see anything that I'm doing.
I would say the Riptide because it's a little more posable, but the Storm Surge is just so much more detailed. Yeah, I love the Storm Surge. If I were still playing POW, that would have been I would have purchased that thing a long time ago. Tomb Citadel or Illuminar Xyrax. Yes. I love that the little character models can be considered in that list of minis that were fun to put together. One moment, let me finish doing this because it sounds like I have a message in the Discord. I don't know if that's you guys or if that is something else.
Okay. It to be go. Let's find out what you got. Whoops, that's not what I wanted. I accidentally closed out of that. The dink. Oh, cool. Thanks. I'll check it out later after I'm off the stream. But yeah, I'll give that chess set a look and let you know if anything needs to be done. Right now, I do not have any resin, so I cannot print them, unfortunately. But I'll at the very least be able to look at them in the slicer and see if anything needs to be done with them. I kind of think I almost think I want to go opposite of what I was going to do with the packaging for Nady, and I just want to put it in like a nondescript brown box with everything just kind of scrawled on it incoherently, except for his name and address. See how badly that would mess with him on live stream. You worked your ass off on Illuminor Xyrax for a whole month. You built him and painted him in complete sub-assembly. That is an incredible amount of effort. I have yet to spend more than a couple of days on a model. And even then, that's being very generous with the amount of time. I got myself a Mortarion shortly after I got married because I finally found him at a game store. And I think that model is probably the one I spent the longest on, and that was only like 3 days on and off. So, I mean, honestly, I wasn't the painter I am today, but I definitely remember being excited to work on him and spending more time than I would have normally. But I have gone back and tweaked him and fixed him up a few times since then. Still not to a level I'm happy with. I kind of really wish I could strip him down and then redo him, but I'm scared. He's too big a model for me to want to do that, so I'm probably just going to buy another one and repaint him that way. The only model I've ever painted in sub-assembly has been my Imperial Knights and my Chaos Knights, and even then, that was mainly just painting the armor separate from, or the armor plating separate from the main torso. You've got an entire hammerhead you need to strip the paint off of. Cleaners work real good for that. IPA works really good for that. You might want to, if you're doing that though, you might want to do that somewhere where you don't mind getting splashes. I'm kind of curious. I've wanted to try this and I just haven't yet. But I'm kind of curious what would happen if I were to like dip an electric toothbrush in IPA and then just turn it on and use that to try and strip a model. So I think when I get another toothbrush that fails or gets too old and the bristles get too worn, I'm just going to go ahead and try that. Okay, let's go. Let's see what Fladefather Minis has for me. Oh, hot damn. That is so cool. Also, you're getting a follow. Oh my goodness. We're gonna go ahead and really zoom in on that. Pick it all in, boys. Okay. Yeah, you can definitely tell that you spent a lot of love and time on this. That's a really cool model. Oh, that poor man lost his head. Oh, that's neat. That's so cool. Okay. I love how gritty he looks. The brain juice is loose. Yes, it is. It is very loose. That is such a neat friggin' model, man. Your paint job really complements it. I love the readability that Games Workshop has in its models. Like, don't get me wrong, some of them are still compared to others, and some of them are a little too overbuilt, and some are a little too overly complicated. But you cannot tell me that Games Workshop does not do a fantastic job with their models. I think that the readability they're able to get for their models is absolutely phenomenal. I think this is golden olive. Is this the color that I'm gonna want to use? I'm gonna do some lights on this guy. I don't even know if they're actually lights. I think they're just rivets, but I want them to be lights. Actually, one moment. Let me look at. Specifically painted him with an original color scheme, which is dark green and silver with orange energy. Yeah, I can see that. Illuminor or Xerath. Let's look at one of the original paint jobs they got from. Yeah, I can see that you definitely modeled him after the original paint scheme. But like the way you did it looks so good. It like I said, it's got this really great grittiness to it that translates really well to the grimdark. And I think it's a friggin' amazing model. The basing you did on that thing is fantastic, by the way. I don't know. I've got nothing but good to say about that cool thing. Okay, give me a second. Leviathan Dreadnought. I'm pretty sure the things I'm about to paint as lights are not lights. Yeah, those aren't lights. And I don't think I'm going to deviate too far from that. They don't need to have anything. What they will eventually need to have is... Sorry, I didn't mean to clap that close to the mic. What they are eventually going to need to have is some Imperial Fist regalia. Not his original paint scheme for his new model, for his original model. Yeah, no, I saw that they had 2 different versions. And the one that you have looks to be his newer model, but you took the paint scheme from the original model. Which, the original model looked pretty damn cool itself, don't get me wrong. I do like that Games Workshop, because of the new technologies, has been able to clearly increase the detail of their models and get it so that the scale of them is a little bit more accurate. But at the same time, I really, really like the original models. There's only a couple that I feel like they really whiffed on. But I feel like most of their original models and their original sculpts were spot on. And I really wish I could collect those too, to be honest. But I just don't have that kind of money. We're gonna go ahead and spray his base because I'm lazy and I don't like basing. Welcome back, Pilkey. Okay. I am getting ready. I am getting the airbrush ready to spray his base to make it match the rest of my mini bases, which is more of a darker, muddier color than the very kind of bright dirt color that they've got going on with the texture paste. So I'm a bum. I am a lazy bum, and what else you got? Before I get to the airbrushing. Now we're at the level where I can be this detailed with the models. Jeez, the cults are so good. Let's go ahead and cycle through these. I know, right? And that's the best part. And it kind of goes back to the other thing I really enjoy about Games Workshop stuff is that the level of detail in the models themselves allow your models to look good at almost any painting level, right? Let's go. Come on. Window capture. Bam! Look at that. Look at that. I really wanted to start collecting the Genestealer cults, and I just didn't because it's more money than I'm willing to spend. But yeah, these look so good. I love the grime and the rust that you were able to get on their guns, on their equipment. It's all fantastic, man. Congrats. Stuff's hard. Where did mine go? I ended up getting a single... It's a Magus? Where did she go? I have lost her. There's my Among Us, guys. Oh, there she is. She's right in front of me. Understandable. They're great models, but like this is what I was able to get with a Magus. And I think this is a fantastic model. I think a lot of their models are fantastic. Understandable. Yeah, Pilkey, I have the same problem. It's like I want to build more. No problem, Red. It's perfectly okay. We're just kind of gushing about the models that we have and what other people have done. But yeah, this is the Magus I was able to do. And I'm really happy with how she turned out. I kind of wish that I had gotten her head better on her neck because she's got kind of a sass to it. Let's get you out of the way. That was unintentional. And I really want to go back and redo her eyes, though I think I did a pretty decent job. But yeah, I really love how detailed their sculpts are getting. I think my favorite thing I've done so far, in terms of just silliness, is I did a set of Among Us Hearthkin, because they just look so much like the Among Us with their without their arms, and so I was really happy to do that. And I kit bashed myself 2 imposters, and the way I did so was I took some bits from Chaos Possessed that one of my friend gave me, and I ended up cutting off and then shaving down a beholder eye from a D&D kit, and just really whittling it down so that you could see the eye underneath one of the open helmets. And where'd the other one go? Because I've got 2 of them. For this one, I just kind of took the mandible, the lower jaw, from the beholder bits, and I shaved it down, and then jammed it into one of the helmets too. So yeah, these imposters are very clearly imposters, and I think it's pretty neat. Eventually, what I want to do, especially now that I have the STLs for it, is I'm gonna fill it out so that I have an equal number of imposters and of crewmates, and see if I can make some kind of board game out of it using the boarding action stuff. Necrons are my main. Flatefather Mini says Necrons are my main army. Gene Stealer Cults are my passion project. Trader Mechanicum are my 30k, and I just started Soulblight Grave Lords for the Age of Sigmar. Right now, especially, I have the Imperial Fists, who have kind of become my main army. I have 4 armies. Understandable. If you're gonna try and build them up as much as you have that your Necron army, then you got a ways ahead of you, I guess. Good luck with that, because that's going to be really cool when all's said and done. Imperial Fists kind of became my army after, honestly, after watching If the Emperor Had a Text-to-Speech Device and enjoying their depiction of Rogel Dorn. I started off with the Tau because I really liked the mecha, and the broadside battle suit with the giant fuck-off Magna Rail rifle just really spoke to me. Because big gun funny, but then I kind of fell in love with the Imperial Fists and like their mantra and how they do war and all that fun stuff. And so I'm assuming this is Pilkey because it kind of fell off. Tau are my main, have Thousand Sons, Evil Sons, Orcs, Votan, some White Scars, Raven Guards for Age of Sigmar, Caradron Overlords, Sylvaneth, and technically Cities of Sigmar. And then you have the Imperial Fists for 30k. And I've seen a lot of Pilkey's army paints, and they look fantastic. My goal is at some point to have a 30k army painted as well as Pilkey's. So yeah. I also have some Death Guard, which kind of became my first Chaos army, because I had some of the starter kit stuff from the 8th edition starter set, and I just kind of expanded it from there. No guns are bigger than the Ordinatus Ulator. I'm not sure what that is, based on how I pronounced it, but I just loved the idea of the mecha having the one big gun. Let's spray this down, or hit this with a hairdryer, and then go back over it to make it even grimier. I feel like I know what that is, and I've seen it before, but I'm drawing a blank on what that is. Based on the name, it sounds like some kind of Imperium fuck-off cannon. Okay. Hit you again with the dark. My general thing I'm going for, just because it's there, a Lord of War for the Mechanicum, it's legit a giant F-off cannon, fuck-off cannon with tracks. I know what you're talking about, and yes, that thing's got to be based off of, what was it called? It was I think it was a German gun that was just literally a cannon on railroad tracks, and that was the only way to transport it, during World War II. I don't think it ever actually saw use, but it was just one of those things they were working on, and, it was really damn funny. Okay, there's got to be a way. I've glued you down with super glue. There's got to be a way for me to get back there and hit that one patch that I cannot hit. There we go. There we go. But yeah, it's literally one of those big old... We decided to put all of our military budget into one gun, and this is it. It's bigger than a Titan gun, which is hilarious. That's because it is damn funny. I'll be right back. I need to clean up my hair. Yeah, again, I just love the fact that 40K is so clearly based off of antiquated technology and antiquated combat doctrine. So it allows us to see these giant, fantastical versions of guns that have no logical reason to exist other than someone at a toy company went, you know what would be cool? Raymond Russ is basically a World War One. Yeah, it is just a World War One battle tank, and the Rhino is an APC from that same era. And again, that's what makes it so much fun. Gonna hit it with the hairdryer again. Dry out some of this. That stuff. I think that's correct. That sounds correct, Mr. Red. Okay, so that's done. Oh goodness. Next is on to the dry brushing. So what I'm going to need is some dark brown. And I think this time, I mean, when the gun fires, it legit fires a straight line through the battlefield, and anything that gets hit just dies as the cannon is instant death. Yeah, those are the best things. Have you seen what they did to the I think it's called the Death Strike missile? I forget the names of the guard guns just because there's so damn many of them. And I don't play guard, so I don't have as in-depth a familiarity with them as I do with, like, you know, most other ones. The Militarum. I'm almost positive it's called the Death Strike, though. It's that big artillery piece. Yeah, the Death Strike. The new rules for the Death Strike is just so damn funny. If you haven't read it, if you have, then you know what I'm talking about. I love the idea that it's place a marker down. If anything's within range of that marker by the next turn, they take a ton of mortal wounds. That's it. That's how it works. Yeah, no, based on what it sounds like, nothing's as good as the Ulator or Ulatter or however it's spelled. That gun just sounds like the game over button. And that's just funny, damn it. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and brighten this back up a little bit with, I don't even know what brown this is. This is meant to be a darker brown, but it's just kind of a chocolatey brown. And then I'm gonna, 1,000 points to field, well yeah, no wonder. It basically makes a murder line whenever you fire it, so. That does not surprise me in the least. Okay, hit that a little bit, hit that a little bit. And it's like, well, you can barely see that. And that's true, I can barely see that, but that's okay. This is just layer 1 of a 2-layer process. So there we go. A little bit of red Ed. You want to take that objective? Well, too bad. You don't exist anymore. So do you think that they're going to add Dark Mechanicum in 10th edition? Because it feels like they're going to add... I feel like they can't go without adding another faction. I'm almost positive that for Chaos, for or the Chaos Space Marines, we're going to get Fulgrim back. Like, Fulgrim's going to come back at the end of 10th edition. But there's got to be something else in there. I don't know. I have no idea how their cycle is, their release cycle is. But they just did Votann, which were Xenos, and they just did World Eaters. But I feel like Dark Mechanicum would be the next one in line, just because you can't really have AdMech without having Dark Mechanicum, right? Outsider? I'm not sure what that is. That's probably old lore that's from before my time. Enlighten us, please. Oh, that's way too... that's way too much. I do like that, though, so that's going to stay. The Outsider was a Catan that was never shattered and escaped the Necrons. That would be cool. But, I guess they would have to do an entire army built around that. And, I don't know enough about the lore that would justify an entire army being built around it. I mean, they did just do Vashtor, and he's supposed to be... He's like the minor chaos god that's trying to be a full-fledged one, and he just feels like Dark Mechanicum. So that's where my money is. Whether or not it happens or not, I'm not gonna put any actual money down. I'm not I'm not Chapter Master Volrak, but that's what it feels like is happening next. But I right now I'm just kind of holding out until the Emperor's Children are a thing, because I really want an Emperor's Children Chaos Army with an Emperor's Children Fulgrim. I don't see Vashtor arriving and the Dark Mechanicum not being a thing in the future. Yeah, see, that's what it kind of feels like. I mean, when they first started showing him off, weren't people initially like, oh my god, they're doing Dark Mechanicum? Because he just fits that bill so well. As I throw my model down. You predicted the return of the Silent King in 9th. I'm really sad that much wasn't done with the Necrons, given that they were made out to be the big bad of 9th edition. Sorry, Red. Hopefully that you'll be able to get that working in a second. I hate when the internet is crummy like that. Thankfully, this isn't a very high-intensity, high-activity stream, so you're not missing too much. Other than me throwing my models, apparently. In fact, wasn't the Necron... I'm not going to say the storyline was closed off, but weren't they kind of hand-waved away in a series of White Dwarf articles? Like the importance and threat of them? For 9th edition? Because that's what I remembered reading. I remembered, I mean, they're exactly the big bads, but the Necrons can be reasoned with. Yeah, no, Necrons definitely are one of the most civilized of the quote-unquote bad guy races. If we want to look at them that way as antagonists. But, I was expecting them to play a much bigger role in the overarching plot, which, you know, is clearly very Imperium-focused in 9th edition, and that didn't really happen. I only recently learned that apparently 9th retconned about 100 years of 40k lore. Yeah, they pushed the Indomitus Crusade back, so instead of like a lot of the stuff with that being over 100 years old, it goes back to like 12. The Necrons got a really big development, army-wise and identity-wise, Tobacco. In I think it was like 9th edition. You thought 8th was during the Indomitus Crusade. Yeah, see, that's what I did too, but I think they retconned it so that the Plague Wars happened about a dozen years after the Indomitus Crusade started, or something. I don't know. That part of the lore is right before I started paying attention to it, and to be honest, I dove into the Horus Heresy, so my knowledge of it is very, very minimal. Eventually, I'm going to be reading Plague Wars on Dark Imperium, and I forgot this bit, and that makes me sad. So I'll have a better grasp of it soon, but I've got to finish the Horus Heresy first. The Siege of Terra. I just got to Warhawk, which I'm very excited about, because a friend told me that it has all the stuff I like, which is White Scars and Death Guard. The Necrons are now using the Imperium as a tool to return to flesh, so Necrons are protecting humanity in a way for later use. Yeah, wasn't that a thing in at the end of 7th with the fall of Cadia? Was that they had some kind of uneasy alliance regarding the pylons surrounding the Eye of Terror. Or at the very least, it was Belisarius Cawl and Trazyn. But what was I just thinking? So yeah, Tobacco, they gave them a fairly large retcon. Well, not retcon, but gave them a whole lot more fleshed out of a background. So instead of just being, the mindless Terminators or whatever that they were, they have very clear identities and very clear personalities and ambitions. It's not necessarily the greatest source of the lore, but if you want a quick Cliff's Notes of the Necrons, Adeptus Ridiculous does a pretty good layman's breakdown of Necron culture and how it's been changed. Obviously, it's done in a very bro way, but not necessarily like a toxic bro way. Just it's meant to be more of a primer for people who don't know anything about Warhammer than a really deep depth. I can't brain a really deep dive of them. You know what I mean? As normal humanity fucked it up and wouldn't let us act. Yeah, humanity dumb. Then I have a tiny army of them all looking the same. Yeah, that tends to happen. Let me see if I can find it for you. Tobacco. Like I said, I people have different opinions on Adeptus Ridiculous. They're not always correct. And Bricky does his best, but he clearly does not have an encyclopedic knowledge of the lore. He has what I would consider a very good generalist knowledge, and so it causes him to fudge the details a bit. But I don't feel like he really needs to be actually as badly as he does. He's not, if the Emperor had a text-to-speeching it, if you know what I mean. Okay, so copy link address. Do you know what would have happened if the pylons were activated? Why'd you buy a pack of dudes? Because they're all that are all the same. Well, you need footmen. Weren't they going to seal the gate, the Eye of Terror? That was my understanding. Okay, so that's Adeptus Ridiculous's first video they did on Necrons and the Silent King. And they did a later one, which I think delved deeper into the culture. Did I never watch the Nemesis Zandrak episode? Man, I gotta go back to that. But yeah, please go ahead and explain what was going to happen if they activated the gate. Here's the other one they have, which is on Dynasties, Destroyers, and Flayed Ones. So if at any point you want to watch those, go for it. And speaking of going for it, for my purposes, this guy is about done. He's not perfect. He could still use with some highlights, which I will eventually give him. But for what I need, he is battle ready and ready to go. And if you don't already know, the way I magnetize my troops is I use these. I might buy War Machines. Yeah, the War Machine stuff is really cool. This has become my new favorite way to magnetize things, because for the longest time, what I was doing when I started playing was I was putting the magnets just straight on the base like so. But that was not really working, and it was very not efficient. Speaking of, this is one of my early paint jobs. You can probably see how much I've improved since then. But the Eye of Terror would have been closed. The warp would have been completely shut off from the Materium, which would instantly defeat Chaos, but would also kill all of the Scythers, including the Emperor. Well, I mean, that wouldn't have been bad because he's a perpetual. He would have been able to respawn without Chaos pouring through and destroying all of Terra, right? But no, humans are stupid. After 10,000 years of being stupid, they've gotten dumber. So they were like, no, you can't do that. And obviously made things worse. But I mean, that is kind of the point of 40k, right? It's like everyone has to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, or else the setting doesn't work, is my understanding. But yeah, that's how I started when I was first putting together and magnetizing my bits. And then for like this guy, what I was doing was using these washers and gluing them onto the washers. But that wasn't working very well because the washers were for the most part not magnetic. And the magnet sticks out just a smidge from the base. So when you put it down, he has a bit of a wobble to him, which is not fun. More recently, though, I found this out by watching a Goobertown Hobbies video who does great stuff, is he buys these little metal blanks. And if you glue them on there, you can just attach the magnet right to it. And then it leaves just enough room. It leaves almost no print right there. And you can put it down, and when you put it on a metal sheet, it's now two pieces of metal surrounding the magnet and sandwiching it, so it does a better job of staying in place. The thing is, he responds due to being a perpetual, but if I'm correct, that requires the warp. We don't know if he would have responded. That's fair. And see, that's where my knowledge of the lore goes way down. But so yeah, I guess I understand why they didn't want that to happen, because they want to keep their lad alive, but that doesn't make it any smarter, damn it. Okay. Time for a monstrosity. I don't think I've shown this off on camera yet, but be prepared to be upset with me, because this was not well put together. That right there is a whirlwind using, I think, a Deimos Predator and poorly fit Necrons are the heroes they deserve. Yeah, I think that they've realized their folly and had enough time to think on it. But yeah, this is a Deimos Predator. This is a very poorly slapped together Deimos Predator that is entirely 3D printed. I got the other pieces to it. I know, right? I got the other pieces to it from a different artist, and so they don't fit right. So like the Imperial Fist door definitely does not fit properly. The side doors definitely don't fit properly. I kind of had to finagle the damn whirlwind bits to make that all work. I think, though, if there's any consolation to this, there's a peg on the inside of this that was just too long, and I had to snip it apart using essentially wire cutters, because I have this multi-tool that I use for multiple things, but I just put it in there to try and snip it, and in general, it works pretty well, but I really thought I was going to break the damn tool, because the resin that I use, the Soraya Tech Blue mixed with the Soraya Tech Fast, is incredibly durable. And so I was pretty tickled to see just how strongly it was holding everything together. Yeah, have the Necrons fought the Tau? I don't think I've ever heard of the Necrons fighting the Tau. Like, I've never heard of any big battles with it. They seem to have fought the Orcs a lot, they seem to have fought humanity a lot. And they've had some incursions with Chaos, but I've never heard of any major events where the Necrons fought the Tau. Ooh, regale me. I would love to hear about how that went down. When I join a fledgling Emperor who can't even hold their own against Guardsmen. Ooh, we've got some spice. I mean, you gotta start somewhere. Remember, they defeated Chaos. Oh, poor Tau. They're trying their best. I wonder what the new Farsight lore means for them, now that I think about it, because if I recall right, in the Arcs of Omen Farsight book, aren't they fighting, like, the Orcs
and Farsight pulls a pro gamer move where he opens up a warp portal where a bunch of like corn demons just come in and absolutely obliterate the orcs. Because if there was ever a pro gamer move, that would be it. And the implications now are like, Farsight can manipulate chaos, he's corn touched. Or something. I have no clue. I've only read like the Cliffs Notes versions of what happened there. But very interesting. That also brings into question, how the heck did he get a Xenophase blade? Because it isn't Farsight basically using a Necron sword, like a Necron life drain sword? Again, my knowledge of the lore outside of like the Horus Heresy is very poor. We save the Tau and slaughter them. That seems like the appropriate response. Greetings, you are being rescued. Please do not resist. Or whatever the quote is from that one Star Wars movie. Rogue One? Rogue One. I am not doing myself any favors with the nerd cred right now. An old one blade? I have no clue. I have no clue. It aesthetically, it seems to look a lot like a Necron blade, so I legitimately do not know what the heck Farsight's weapon is. Like I said, that would be a question for other more vastly superior lore masters to answer, because I don't have the answer to that question. I just remember seeing it and thinking, that looks like a Necron blade. And so that was my assumption. If I'm wrong, please someone correct me. Do not let me spread the misinformation. Farsight's weapon is theorized to be an Eldar blade. I am all over the place here. I'm dumbass thinking that it's a Necron blade. That's okay. I'm allowed to be wrong once in a while. All the time. Once in and all of the time. Okay, so I just got through singing the praises of using those steel blanks as a magnetizing base, but how the heck am I going to fit them on here? Weren't the Tau friendly with the Eldar? Do the Eldar like anyone? I can assure you it's not a Necron one, they're more stylized. Fair enough. I'm going to bow or concede my understandings to someone who has clearly been in this hobby a lot longer than I have and knows a heck of a lot more of the lore than I do. Yeah, friendly is always like uneasy friendly. It's never on great permanent alliance terms. Right? The one I thought was really funny and a very nice subversion of trope was finding out that the Votann and the Craft Worlds get along well. Actively not trying to murderize. That's fair. I mean, that's about as friendly as you can get in 40k, right? The Eldar are friendly with most races. The only ones who aren't are the Orcs, Necrons, and a Chaos faction. Besides the Alpha Legion. I'm surprised they're friendly with the Alpha Legion, given that the, at least with the 30k lore, that the Cabal, that the Alpha Legion sided with the Cabal, which were clearly a Chaos Corruption faction. To the point that, if I remember right, Eldrad hired... Farsight's blade was found in Arthas Moloch, which was ruins of a race that, quote, predates the Imperium, end quote. There was a Warhammer 40k mod for Half-Life. One of the Eldar had that walker with the big long gun that just insta-gibbed, which basically points to the Eldar, Necrons, or most likely the old ones. Farsight got a frog blade! Speaking of, what do you guys think? Well, actually, more specifically, Pilkey, since you're the other Tau player here, what do you think of the new Farsight model? I wish I could play the Half-Life games or anything made by Steam or Valve. I mean, the running in that is just so janky for me that it makes me violently ill because I have motion sickness. But I feel like I'm really missing out on some of the best games ever made. Necron weapons are like obscenely overpowered. Well, yeah, don't they have like a galaxy deleter button? Or a planet deleter button? I don't remember what it's called. I know that their standard gun de-atomizes you. And that's their start-off point. It's like, we just make you cease to exist. We break you down at the subatomic level. You don't exist anymore. You aren't a thing. Multiple, yeah. No, I figured that. I'm gonna go vacuum my house. I'll be back if you're still streaming when I'm done. Thank you. Thank you for popping in. Have a good rest of your time if you're not. Or if you don't manage to make it back. Okay. The Tau and Eldar are sort of friendly. Put it this way, one night some ships that definitely weren't Eldar ships, and it's heresy to seriously were showed up on Tau, and then the Ethereal suddenly showed up and transformed Tau society. That's absolutely fair, I guess. Why am I doing this? I can do it with an airbrush. Okay, so we're gonna clean up some of that. The Interstellar Orrery and the World Engine are two galaxy destruction weapons not about. Yeah, I'm aware of those. And they're friggin' terrifying. But yeah, the thing that always got me about the Necrons was just the knowledge that their starter weapon was erase you at an atomic level. That's a really, really hard place to start at. Okay. Basically, the Eldar found a race that was null in the warp and said, let's try and make these into a potential weapon. Cool! The new Farsight model looks great. I agree. You know what my favorite thing about the new Farsight model is? They've already proxied it. I have a version of it waiting in my shopping cart right now on Cults. And I'm just absolutely tickled that it took them like 3 days to figure out, yep, this is what it looks like, this is the sculpt, this is what it's gonna look like. I think the only thing it's missing is the cherry blossom terrain. The not cherry blossom terrain that he comes with. So eventually when I have some more spending money, I'm gonna go ahead and buy that. And even though I'm not playing the Tau anymore, I really want that model. And while I'm probably going to end up shelling over the $60 or $80 that the plastic model ends up being, I do want to paint a resin cast version of it just for funsies. Okay. Yeah, that door ended up looking a little janky. It's like split down the middle. Strange way. That's fine, I suppose. Oh dear. That's a deep dump of lore that I can't see because of how the chat is set up. Give me a second. The Orrery is a map that they can use to manipulate the galaxy and straight up destroy planets, and the World Engine is a planet-sized battle station that was so obscenely powerful it took the destruction of a naval fleet and the death of an entire chapter to take down one. Yep. And then the Necrons were probably like, you think you're pretty tough there, Space Marines? Well, I've got 7 more! I mean, I doubt that happened, but it would feel right. Speaking of, for anyone who has read the Heresy books, which I'm not sure how many of you that would be, isn't Battle for the Abyss like the most useless book known to mankind, or in the entire series? Battle for the Abyss could not have been less important and less impactful if they tried. because like nothing happens in that book. I don't know. You're currently reading that one. I like it. Don't get me wrong. I like Battle for the Abyss because they very clearly hadn't fleshed out the chapters that are in there. And so it's kind of fun just reading these weird pastiches of like, this is how a space wolf acts. This is how an ultramarine acts. Like, I enjoyed that part of it, especially because I was still relatively new to the lore, so I didn't have a strong purview of how each of the chapters acted. But the book is so fucking useless. I don't really. Do you really care about spoilers? Because if you do, I'm not gonna spoil it for you. If you don't, I'm gonna spoil it for you. Because your thing about the world engine getting blown up by like an entire chapter of Space Marines is, yes, it's very cool, but it just reminds me of Battle for the Abyss for many reasons. But yeah, I'm not gonna give any more details about that book until you tell me whether or not you're okay with spoilers. That's kind of when I'm stopping there. Because I think of the people who regularly visit my stream, I'm the only one that's like obsessively going through the Horus Heresy. Well, I was until Nick Kime decided to bog down a bunch of books about the Salamanders. Poor Nick Kime. He tried his best. I mean, there are definitely some stinkers in the Horus Heresy. Most of the side books where they don't really progress anything and they just tell more stories about how miserable it is and what's happening. Those ones I'm not overly fond of either, but Battle for the Abyss takes the cake as the one that made me the maddest by the time, or as I continued reading the Horus Heresy. I think Damnation of Pythos was pretty friggin' bothersome too. That one was just in general upsetting. And I'm pretty sure I've talked about both of those on screen. If I have not, I'd be more than happy to regale you with how annoyed I was at the end of Damnation of Pythos. I ended up being on stream a whole lot longer than I thought I was going to. I have plans today to head back out because I need to return a tool that they shipped the wrong size. It's a screen protector for my 3D printer because getting resin right on your screen sucks ass. So having a good screen protector to do exactly as it says is really nice. It also adds just that little cushion of extra release for the FEP. Sorry, I'm focusing in and doing some detail work with a big stupid brush because I'm too lazy to get a smaller one. There we go. There we go. I think a lot of this other stuff I can just kind of finagle with an airbrush. right now. This just annoyed me.
I didn't lose chat, did I?
No, everything still looks like it's gone. I'm still connected. The connection is still strong. I should be fine. Let's see. There. I was actually meant to work on the Warthog, and I just completely forgot. Or the Puma. And for anyone who was not in my channel yesterday and did not see that, Mr. Red, another user who hops on regularly in chats, he was here today, but I think his computer died out because the internet was being awful. He gifted me a Primaris Invader ATV that he got from Imperium Magazine just because he had no use for it. And it finally came in a few days ago. And I was really excited because I originally, when he asked if I wanted it, I was like, yeah, sure, because my plan was to build a White Scars army made entirely out of bike, if I could, right? I was going to get an old school Khan on the bike. I have 9 Outriders. I was going to get a bike attack squad that was going to, with the multi-meltas and all that fun stuff. I was going to make it fast. That was the goal. Entirely bike based army. But then I realized I really don't want to build and paint another army of Space Marines. And so that kind of gave up. And I was like, what am I going to do with this Invader ATV? I still want it because I want to paint it, but I don't want to paint it like a Space Marine chapter. And so he suggested, make it a Mario Kart. I was like, that's a great idea. Let's make an Invader ATV like a Mario Kart. And unfortunately, Mario's going to be really surprised when he sees that minigun has become a viable item in Mario Kart. But then I realized, you know what? This looks more like a Puma. So I've got the thing primed up in like a military-esque green, and I was going to start doing some more of the painting today, which basically involved painting Griff and Simmons on there after I finished working on the Leviathan Dreadnought. But as you can see, that clearly has not happened. So mayhaps another day. That's okay. I've been pretty intent on trying to get this army for these units built so I can use them in one-page rules in 40k with my friends. So me taking a detour to paint something else that needs to get painted is definitely a good thing. I will say that I need to stop buying new stuff for a bit though. I've got quite a few things in the list that need to be finished. I still have yet to finish doing true metallic metal on all of my Custodes and my Sisters of Silence I got from the Combat Patrol, and I really can't let that sit for much longer. Mainly just because I don't want it sitting around the damn office anymore. I just kind of got tired of doing it on camera because it was a lot of the same thing over and over again, and I figured that's not the funnest thing in the world to watch. But here I am painting with my 5th Imperial Fist thing on camera, so who am I to complain? I've also got an entire Escher gang that I need to eventually paint, because I bought them just because I think Splatterpunk girls are awesome. And I'm going to make them as loud and obnoxious as possible. But right now, they're just sitting Zenithal primed on the cart next to me, which is doing no one any good. I also have an entire Start Collecting Oscar Militarum kit to paint that was left by a friend many years ago, and the statute of limitations on that is pretty much over as far as I'm concerned. But I am going to paint it in tribute to them by giving it kind of an urban camo look, which is what they wanted. So if they ever do get in contact with me again and are like, hey, Benry Paints, you still happen to have that Imperial Guard start collecting box? I can be like, yeah, I painted it. I painted it how you wanted it. So here you go. Hope you enjoy. And all I can hope is that their preference didn't change in like the 3 years since I've last seen them. Big sloppy paints, big sloppy paints, big sloppy paints, big sloppy paints. One of the best things about having a big stupid brush is it allows you to do big sloppy paints. Comme ça, like so. Okay. I did find out something that was a wee bit disheartening, though overall a net positive. They're very clearly changing how units work and whatnot in 40k with 10th edition, and they're vastly streamlining it and simplifying it down without making it oversimplified, which I appreciate. But one of the things is that when I built this 2K army, I definitely built it with 9th edition in mind and some of the synergies that 9th edition gives you in mind. And while I'm kind of sad that my stuff may not work the way I hoped it would in 10th, I'm not overly upset because I felt like it was too easy to synergize your army and make it so that you basically beat your opponent before the game started if you just happen to have the right stuff put together. And so that's kind of where I am with this. Like, I plan on printing and painting another Whirlwind specifically because I have 2 Tech Marines, which are going to boost that Whirlwind up to have, hitting on 3s on turn 1 with Devastator Doctrine and Legacy Adorn open on whatever priority target I need them to hit. But who knows if all of that stuff is going to stay the same. I know that the Legacy Adorn thing is going away, and the combat doctrines are changing, so that's probably not going to be a thing anymore. And when I built my captain, I specifically wanted to use the Power Sword, Artificer Armor, Imperium Sword combo, a Relic Sword, Artificer Armor, Imperium Sword combo, to make him into a much heavier hitter that could take down elites. But clearly, with how Warlord traits and whatnot are changing, that's not going to be possible. And again, while I'm a little sad about that, I'm definitely relieved that Games Workshop is getting rid of the incredible granular crunch that the game used to have, because a lot of the times it just felt like too much. And I definitely understand that there are people who really like that stuff, and I'm sorry that they're losing out, but I feel like that by getting rid of a lot of the granularity in favor of broader stroke complexity, the game will be able to pull in more people who otherwise were turned off by how incredibly complex the game was, especially with 9th edition and how it relied so heavily on gotcha strategies and theory crafting and list building in a way that, to my understanding, previous editions did not. So, who knows? Who knows how it will turn out? My hope is that it turns out in a way that is immensely fun to play and draws more people into the hobby. Oh, 8th is probably the best edition you've played. That's good to know. because it seems like they're drawing some inspiration from 8th while trying to make it even an even more smooth gameplay experience. Because like with 8th, they have the indexes at the beginning of the edition to hold everyone over till codexes happen, which is awesome. And then the codexes started getting released, which was also great. But with the start of 9th and with how 9th worked out, the way they were playtesting things, they were just kind of playing the most recent army against the upcoming army. I haven't played 9th, really played it well, so I'll probably go 8th, 6th, 9th, 7th, and 5th. My biggest problem with 9th, and it seems to have been the principal complaint of 9th, is it took what made 8 so good and kept the core, but then it just kept adding shit to it. So, like, whereas 8 was a lot more elegant and simple in a lot of ways, 9th started adding so many different stratagems and relevant army tactics and warlord traits and things that just overcomplicated what was a fairly simple system and made it miserable. That was my understanding with how 9th kind of ruined what 8th had done. And the best example I can give you is, while I love the flavor of it, the AdMech were turned into a mess. Because there was just so much bookkeeping you had to do. Because in 9th edition, the AdMech had canticles, which they had in 8th edition, which was great. The idea of, like, the army having a speaker system that was just chanting Binaric and causing them to do something better, that's really cool. But they also added, I think they were called Doctrinas, that only affected certain units. And to stack on the Doctrinas, they also had, the individual warlord traits and then the individual auras from different characters. And so you were never just, bookkeeping for one or two things. If you were playing as the AdMech, you were constantly keeping track of like 3 or 4 things with different orders of operation at different times. And that just made them really, really hard to play in a meaningful way. And I keep using this as an example because it's the clearest one to me. But like my best friend who got me into the game, he played AdMech just because he liked the theme of them, he liked how they looked, he liked the idea of them, but he couldn't keep track of the army. And so it would end with him missing triggers, it would end with him forgetting about things, and eventually it got to a point where he just made a spreadsheet, like an order of operations step-by-step table, to remind him, oh yeah, you've got to do this during this phase because this unit has XYZ. And you've got to do this during that phase because that unit has ABC. And the game became less fun for him, even if he was winning, because he was spending so much time focusing on, did I remember these things, that he couldn't even think about the grander strategy of what was happening on the battlefield. And I'm not going to say every unit felt that way, but in like every complaint I had seen about, or every drawback I'd seen about playing the AdMech, exactly. I came into a Warhammer game and an EVE game broke out. The biggest complaint I had seen about the AdMech was that you're going to have to do a lot of bookkeeping. They're so heavily reliant on stratagems and auras and canticles and whatnot that if you don't have that stuff, you're playing them very suboptimally. And that's exactly what happened to him. Okay. So that was the big thing with 9th, was just that the codex creep, on top of the increasing complexity of the game, of the stuff that you had to just... I think that's always been part of 40k to some extent, yes, but from what I understand especially, it was really bad in 9th edition. Like, I've never heard the justification, you need to know the abilities of all the units and how they work with the army rules. Yeah, like I said, I've that's kind of a given. Like, you have to do that in every army. The problem was, at least in my understanding, since I have an even more limited perspective, is that it was made worse in 9th. It became the dominant thing in 9th. and that's where people were having umbrage with it, because like even people who have been playing for a long time were complaining about just how much overt complexity was required. The only people that weren't complaining about it, as far as I could tell, were tournament grinders, and that's because they played it enough that they could really internalize it. It also didn't help that the codexes were coming out ridiculously unbalanced, and because they were built for a meta that didn't really exist. And then Games Workshop fixed it, and actually I legitimately mean they fixed it by having quarterly data slate updates. And that was great for rebalancing, but it also meant that the codex you were buying was not immediately, but was quickly out of date, and you would have to change it. And in the case of the AdMech, as an example again, is that when they first came out, their big thing was Skitarii blobs, because people very quickly realized that between what the Skitarii's galvanic rifle could do in the new edition, and the stratagems and whatnot they could layer over top of it, that blobs of 20 Skitarii Rangers with galvanic rifles could pour out an incredible amount of punishment on most units. And so they did a codex revision that changed how both the stratagem worked and how the galvanic rifle worked. And it's like, okay, whatever, sure. But then they undid it a few months later, because the AdMech just fell so far behind on the competitive meta that they needed that power that they had lost. So it was like they couldn't even keep track of their own codex without feeling like, you basically wasted time going over it with like permanent marker or whatever to blot out the old rules that were no longer good. I don't know. I just, like I said, I'm doing a lot of secondhand stuff because my friends and I, after getting frustrated with the rules changes, the points changes, the ability changes, the fairly deep complexity of the stacking rules and whatnot, we just went over to one-page rules. And I've talked about one-page rules a lot, and I know it's not for everyone because it's kind of the opposite. It's a very vastly simplified version of 40k that plays using alternate activations as opposed to you go, your army goes, my army goes. But and honestly, I miss the complexity of big 40k, but I don't miss it so much that I want to go back to it, because every time I've tried, I've gotten frustrated again with the immense amount of waiting and the immense amount of bookkeeping required. So it looks like Games Workshop is trying to remedy that 10th, in that they're not trying to make the game have less depth. They're trying to make it so that the depth is in meaningful places, if that makes sense. And so I'm really hoping that 10th really nails that balance and keeps with it, because that's kind of what I understood about 8th and what it did in regards to changes from 7th. It didn't neuter the game entirely, but it got rid of rules that were considered overly complex for what they did, and simplified it and sped up games, which is, usually considered a positive. That being said, it's 10 o'clock. Holy crap. I've been online for way longer than I thought I was going to be. Looks like the whirlwind is coming together nicely, but I gotta get going. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. Thank you for hopping into chat and having some really fun conversations. I'll go ahead and see y'all later. Possibly tomorrow before I go to church, but who knows? I might just drop into one of y'all's streams. So have a great rest of the day, guys. Thanks for joining me, and goodbye. Later.